scurrying, scuttling creatures that creep in the shadows. Spiders have made themselves very much at home with us. But they're mostly unwelcome. Perhaps they seem scary because they build elaborate traps and then poison the creatures they catch. The question is, can they ever do any harm to us? All around us, spiders are waiting and watching, poised to practice their deadly skills and wrap their prey in shrouds of silk. Other spiders' methods are even more macabre. Inside the house, this spider snares with a special spray. It detects a possible victim, touches it to gauge the firing range, and with a squirt, stops it dead. Saucer-like eyes give jumping spiders the edge. They crouch low and creep forward, tiny step by tiny step. In a fraction of a second, fangs impale the fly and venom is pumped into the victim. It didn't stand a chance. Most spiders are harmless to anything much larger than a fly, but not Australia's Sydney funnel web. It has half-inch-long fangs, sharp enough to pierce a toenail, and the most toxic spider venom ever known. Funnel web venom is a super stimulant. Blood carries it to the nerves, triggering them to fire continuously. This causes muscle spasms, heavy sweating, and labored breathing. Death comes when the body simply burns itself out. But thanks to antivenom, this isn't likely anymore, just a lot of agony. But why is a little spider that only weighs 0.04 of an ounce so very well armed? Why produce venom pumped under high pressure at high speed that can bring down a human more than 30,000 times its size? It's just a coincidence that we are so susceptible to the funnel web's venom, which is intended for much smaller victims. But all spiders need powerful venom for another reason. For self-protection. Spiders are delicate creatures, and even though they can have up to 8 eyes, many are as good as blind. They depend on other sense organs, found on their pedipalps on either side of the mouth, and on their 8 long spindly legs. With such fragile body parts and a thin skin, a spider needs a strong, fast-acting poison to defend itself, both from threatening predators and from potentially dangerous prey. Some prey animals come with their own powerful defense systems. The scorpion has been slowed down by the spider's silk, but its claws could still crush a spider. And there's always the matter of the poison in its tail. But because the spider has venom, it can dip down for a quick bite. And then retreat and wait until the death throes are over. There are times, though, when venom is no help, when a spider itself is the prey. Out in Arizona's Sonoran Desert, even a tarantula 5 inches across can be in danger. Tarantulas, like most spiders, normally stay safely hidden away, but during late summer, all the males venture out in search of females. And that's when the female hawk wasps come out, too. The tarantula's poor eyesight means that he can't see the wasp. He can't hear her either because spiders don't have ears. What he does have are hairy legs. The hairs are sensitive to the tiny air currents created by the wasp when she moves. Every ripple stimulates a nerve. The spider knows exactly where the wasp is, but his lunges seem half-hearted, almost timid. Sometimes he seems not to be attacking the wasp so much as recoiling from her. What she's trying to do is to get at his soft underbelly and sting him there. And she seems to have some unknown way of subduing him so that she can get past his huge fangs. She isn't killing the tarantula, just paralyzing him. She'll lay eggs in him. Then her grubs will hatch out into a mass of live food. She cleans off any spider venom that might have spilled onto her, and then drags the fallen giant to her burrow, ready to be eaten from the inside out. Most of the courting male tarantulas avoid this and other grim destinies by only coming out at night, when it's also much cooler. So night is also the best time for tarantula researchers. Cara Shillington starts work well after sundown. On summer nights, the desert should be crawling with male tarantulas searching for sex.
I'm interested in male tarantula activity during the mating season, and so I need to be able to follow them around all night. But because they're very sensitive to vibrations, I can't be following exactly on their heels, so the only way to keep track of them is to attach a radio tag.
By tagging a male, you also get a female, because finding a female tarantula is the male's mission. Cara's an expert when it comes to handling these spiders. As she glues on the transmitter, there's not much chance she'll get bitten. Next, she tests her receiver. The signal's fine, and she can let him go. Now the long night's trudge begins. It's sunrise. The tarantulas had no luck, and the desert is heating up. Cara won't be following him for much longer now. As the temperature rises, he'll be more inclined to give up and spend the rest of the day in a cool burrow. But it looks like he's found something. It's what he's been searching for. Invisible strands of silk left by a female to lead a wandering male to her burrow. If Cara sees an actual mating now, it'll only be for the 5th or 6th time.
So you see him tapping the ground with his front pair of legs, and also his pedipalps. He's trying to entice the female out. Looks like he's going all the way in. There's not enough room to mate down there, so he'll have to entice her up onto the surface so that he can get her into the correct position. Oh, wow. He's trying to get into position with the front pair of legs to hook her fangs. And he's almost there. I think he's got one of the fangs. And now he's got both of them.
While still holding her fangs, he has to lift her up. And with his palps, the long organs on either side of his mouth, deposit his sperm. One wrong move by the male now, and the female could easily kill him. Then when it's over, he's got to get away without being bitten.
Okay, she's starting to struggle, and he's backing up. He's let go, and she's just going to go straight back in the burrow.
Sometimes females chase and attack, so the male runs off in the other direction. But males are expendable. He'll only live a few more weeks anyway. The female, though, might last 20 years, mating several times a season. And she'll always stay in the same burrow, at the center of her sexy silk strands. Silk is the essence of spiders. It's remarkable stuff, very fine, very strong, and resistant to bacteria and fungi, which means it doesn't rot. That's why, over time, thick cobwebs form. It's on this construction of silk that a house spider spends most of its short life, mainly sitting and waiting. The silk is like an extension of the spider's legs, which stay very still, ready for the slightest vibration. Anything that moves anywhere on the web sends a telegraph to the legs. Once the fly is bitten and the venom injected, the spider uses its legs to find out what it's caught. This is a sense of touch so fine that it's turned into a sense of taste. The hairs on the spider's legs have open tips, where chemicals from the fly meet the spider's nerve ends. A spider licks with its feet. If it likes the taste, the spider starts eating. It chews through the skin and then dribbles in digestive juices. These dissolve everything inside the fly, creating a soup that the spider sucks up. So for food, spiders depend on their sense of touch, a sense that can reach long distances even without a web. Water transmits vibrations too, and the fishing spider hunts on the surface of ponds and lakes. It can stand on the water without even getting its feet wet. How is this possible? Biomechanics expert Bob Suter.
Really, two things keep these spiders up above the water surface. One is that the surface itself has a skin that we usually refer to as surface tension. And the other part, of course, is that the spiders have a waxy covering all over their bodies, which means that they don't get wet. So the spider pushes down on the water surface tension pushes back up. The spider makes these little dimples in the water. These dimples are about shaped like that, pretty much the same shape as you would get if you pushed your finger into the surface of a balloon.
So the spider's feet stay dry, resting in their dimples and using the water as a web. It can either stand there, letting itself be blown by the breeze, or run on the water, and run fast. But how? Bob films the spiders with a high-speed camera. High-speed cameras create slow motion, in this case 30 times slower, making it possible to see what each of the 8 legs is actually doing. What's happening is that the second and third pairs of legs are doing most of the pushing. If the spider's legs aren't in the water, but only resting on the surface, how can it push against the water to move? Where does it get traction?
To really look at the interaction between the spider's leg and the water, I use this rotating tank, which flows the water past a stationary spider's leg. And in the water are glass beads that allow me to actually see the motion of the water as the water flows past that leg.
The glass beads are in a solution and too small to be seen individually under normal light. So the normal light is turned down, and a single beam is focused on a spider leg from below.
What we're seeing here is a spider leg that's parallel to the water surface, kind of pointing at us so that we're seeing a cross-section of it with the water flowing past it. And you can see some turbulence behind the dimple.
The glass beads, shining in the beam of light, show how the water flows in the leg's wake.
What this really tells us then is that the spider's leg with the dimple attached to it is what makes it able to move across the water, interacting with the water just the way an oar interacts with the water.
Rowing a boat is a matter of levering it against the water with the flat blade of the oar. A rowing spider does the same thing. The dimple levers the spider against the water. But this only works at slow speeds. To row a boat faster, you can pull the sturdy oar blades more quickly. But push a fragile dimple too hard and it disintegrates, like this one, leaving the spider trying to row with a pole. So how do spiders speed up?
When these spiders want to go really fast, they gallop across the water, just touching the water surface as they push off. So they're airborne a lot of the time. That lets them reach speeds up to 36 body lengths a second. If you're talking about a car, that's close to 300 miles an hour. Very quick. Another really quite remarkable thing that this spider can do is when it's startled like that, it jumps right up off the water. When this spider jumps like that, it's doing a startle response, probably a way of escaping from bullfrogs, maybe birds that are trying to catch it. It can get up off the water surface by 2 inches, something like that. Quite an impressive feat for something this size who's pushing off against something soft like water.
Give a spider a solid platform, and you get some real jumping. These are all from the jumping spider family. Spiders that specialize in the long-distance leap. They're less than half an inch long, but they can spring over distances of more than a foot, the equivalent of a human leaping the length of a city block. And they can land on surfaces that are nearly vertical thanks to their hairy feet. These spiders have hairs on their hairs. Each strand splits into even finer strands. The ends of those strands are cup-shaped and will stick to the moist surface of a leaf. With 20,000 of these contact points per foot, it couldn't slip if it tried. Jumping spiders are the ones with the good eyes. There are 8 of them. In front, 2 huge headlamps of eyes that can see in detail, but very narrowly. And encircling the head, 3 pairs of smaller eyes that can only detect movement. These spiders see the world in full circle. The large eyes at the front magnify objects. These are fixed in their sockets. But the back part of the eye moves from side to side to look around. This gives the spider a similar view to what we would see looking at a nearby object through binoculars. As the spider scans to and fro, It gradually builds up an image to get the big picture. With the prey in its sights, the jumping spider starts the hunt, creeping toward the target, like a lion on a savanna, moving in, timing the kill. No spider would leap without letting out a safety line of silk first. Silk comes out of spinnerets, little nodules on the spider's abdomen, each one covered in tiny tubes called spigots. The silk starts inside the spider's body as a liquid, but the process of squeezing it out through the minuscule spigots somehow lines up its molecules, solidifies it. Spider silk is the strongest natural fiber there is. It's also elastic and can stretch to 3 times its starting length, ideal for weaving the world's first catch net, the spider's web. The classic web maker is the orb-weaving spider, which makes the tennis racket-sized constructions often seen in trees. It starts by spinning a frame that stretches between branches. Then it does the spokes. As new spokes are added, the tight disc of silk at the center, known as the hub, is strengthened. Next, from the hub toward the rim, it spins the scaffold spiral, which holds the structure in place. Finally, the spider switches inside its abdomen to an entirely different kind of silk. It spins back again from the rim to the hub, laying down the sticky capture silk. It does this with great precision, measuring out the threads with its front legs. The spider cuts away the old scaffolding thread as it goes. The sticky capture spiral is the business part of the web, the part that snags the prey. The spider tries not to touch it, carefully walking on the other threads. In case of a slip, its feet have an oily, non-stick covering. An orb web takes about an hour to build. An hour to make up to 1,500 connecting points and to spin about 60 feet of silk. Silk so fine that 1 teaspoonful is enough to weave 1,000,000 webs. The sticky capture silk has special properties. Its threads are dotted with little gluey beads containing snarls of silk. When something hits these threads, the snarls come loose and the web stretches. An orb spider's life consists of furious work, followed by long periods of waiting for vibrations. Insects fly into webs because they don't see them. The silk is so fine, it just disappears into the background. The prey is good and stuck. But the spider makes doubly sure by wrapping it in broad silk sheets, another of the 7 different types of silk it spins. The shroud stops the wasp's struggles, protecting the spider from the dangerous sting and protecting the precious web. Orb-weaving spiders build a brand new web every single day of their lives, and every spider seems to build in exactly the same way, guided by an orb-weaving instinct. But is that really true? Can webs vary? Marie Herberstein studies the St. Andrew's cross spider from Australia.
Originally, people were thinking about spiders, I think, in terms of very tiny little machines that were more instinct-driven rather than having the flexibility, say, that your typical mammal or bird has. And only more recently have researchers started to look at flexibility in, say, insects, invertebrates, and spiders. So one thing we were interested in looking at was variation in web building and web design.
The easiest way to do that is to take the spiders back to the lab and let them build their webs there. In Marie's lab, the conditions were controlled. Every spider had the same sized frame for its web, and every day it caught a fly in the same spot. That's because every day Marie put a fly in the same spot. Every morning, when each spider spun a new web, it slightly enlarged the area where the day before Marie had put the fly. The webs were changing shape. As the days passed, the once symmetrical orb webs became distinctly lopsided as the spiders enlarged the areas that gave the best results.
What I think these results are showing us is that there's a great deal of flexibility. Spiders do not always build the same old web, and they're able to adjust their web building behavior depending on their needs and depending on the situation they find themselves in.
So if web weaving is just a blind instinct, it's a complex one. It includes efficiency assessment skills and the ability to make the most of your turnover. Not bad for an animal with a brain no bigger than a grain of salt. How spiders spin may fascinate scientists, but what they spin with fascinates them even more. To say that spider silk is as strong as steel is an understatement. Ounce for ounce, spider silk is much stronger. The race is on to analyze spider silk and produce a synthetic equivalent. They're trying to unravel the genetic code to see how silk gets its strength. They're also trying to figure out how a spider solidifies a liquid at body temperature using only inoffensive body fluids. Chemists have made strong synthetic fibers, but only by boiling up noxious acids. If humans could make silk the way spiders do, it could change the world. We could have fabrics that were extremely strong, light, and elastic. The military could have unbreakable parachute cords for tanks and other heavy objects. Spider silk is insoluble in water and chemically unreactive, so it could be used in medicine for artificial tendons and ligaments which need both strength and flexibility. But replicating spider silk isn't easy. It's sophisticated stuff, produced by 380 million years of evolution. Proving that spiders have been around that long isn't easy either. Small, delicate land animals don't make good fossils. But in this quarry in New York's Catskill Mountains, paleontologist Bill Shear has found spider fossils which prove the vast ancestry. Picking the fossils out of the rock presents a problem. Over time, they've been crushed into minute fragments, and it's hard to separate them from the mass of fossilized plants.
Now all the dark bits that you see here are fossil plant remains. But it's in rocks very much like these that we found the remains of the oldest known spiders.
380 million years ago, the spider's surroundings would have looked very different from today. Instead of the trees and shrubs, there would have been low-growing plants like club mosses, and a few 10-foot-tall fern-like plants. It was also a coastal area, full of streams and rivers. We can guess what the landscape was, but to picture the spider is more of a challenge. To get at the spider fossils, Bill uses an acid that dissolves away rock overnight and leaves fossil matter intact.
Each of the trays that we get after we digest the rock contains about 1,000 fossilized fragments, but most of those are plants. The plant fossils are coaly black and opaque, so what I'm looking for are translucent golden brown pieces. These are the animals. In a good day, I can go through maybe 15 of these trays. That means perhaps around 15,000 fossil fragments are examined per day, and 6 to 10 of those might be animal pieces. And of those 6 to 10, maybe 1 will represent the spider that we're studying.
When a colleague sent Bill some curious animal fossils to compare with his samples, he was thrilled to find that they included a spider spinneret.
It was very obvious right from the start that it was a spider spinneret, because it had these very characteristic structures called spigots from which the silk issues. So this definitely had to be a spider, but this spider was 380 million years old, 75 million years older than the oldest spider that was known at that time.
Bill also noticed some similarities between this spider fossil and some fossils of his own, ones that he had thought weren't spiders, but those had the same pattern of hairs on the cuticle. So he took another look and realized that he'd had lots of other parts of the spider all along. There were jaws there with poison fangs. There were legs.
What we haven't found as yet is a whole specimen. So the process so far has been very much like trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle without the picture on the cover of the box.
Modern-day spiders can also give us clues as to how the ancient spiders lived. They were using silk all right. The fossil spinnerets prove that, but not to spin webs. There were no flying insects to catch back then, just walking ones. The ancient spiders probably used silk to line their burrows, to keep them from collapsing in soft sand. Some might have hunted from their burrows under silken lids, trapdoors, camouflaged by soil. It's what a modern trapdoor spider does. It waits in its hole for approaching footsteps, which tell the spider exactly when to pounce. When prey began leaving the ground, spiders followed, taking their silk burrows with them and spinning wide collars at the entrance. Today's funnel web spiders still do this. They hide in the funnel while the web does the dirty work. And when insects began to fly higher, again spiders followed. But farther up the tree, the funnel flattened out into a sheet of tangled silk. In time, that was refined, turned on its side and streamlined. The orb-web. And along the way, all sorts of ingenious variations appeared. There's the minimalist approach, a single thread beaded with sticky blobs of silk. It belongs to the bolus spider, which swings the thread like a lasso until it hits its target. A moth. In fact, only one kind of moth is ever caught this way. And then there's the spider's spider, Portia, a little jumping spider from Southeast Asia. She doesn't need to use silk to hunt, but she does need to be clever, to be evasive. She hunts other spiders, other jumping spiders, which can see just as well as she can. Rather than pounce directly on her prey, Portia decides to approach from another angle. She embarks on a great detour. She will climb down her own plant, walk across the forest floor, and creep up on her victim from behind. Portia is very good at mental maps. She can figure out where to go for the best line of attack. The other spider, seeing Portia leave, might suppose it can relax, but it shouldn't. Spitting spiders also hunt jumping spiders, and even though it's almost blind, this one can feel a jumping spider's vibrations in the leaf. The jumping spider is caught in sticky glue squirted from the tips of the spitting spider's fangs. Still on her long detour and camouflaged against the dead leaves, Portia plods on, following her mental map. Meanwhile, the spitting spider is wrapping things up. Is this bad luck? Or two for the price of one? And for which spider? The spitting spider didn't want two, and its attack was only defensive. It's taken the other spider and run, leaving Portia to get herself unstuck and to hunt again another day. For most spiders, though, touch is the main sense. That includes feeling and using vibrations. This male redback spider is plucking the threads in a female's web as though he were playing a guitar. Madian Andrade studies these spidery serenades.
Male redback spiders have a very brief life. Even in the lab, they survive for only 4 to 8 weeks, and 80 to 90% of them die before they find a potential mate. So once they get on the web, this is often their only shot at reproduction. When the male reaches the female's web, he has a difficult task ahead of him. Because the female is so much larger than the male, he's only 1 to 2% of her body weight. She could actually eat him if she wanted to at that point. So he needs to convince her that first he is a male of her species and that he's a male that she actually wants to mate with. Now he does this by signaling to her across the web.
As the male progresses across the strands, he keeps plucking, sending signals. I'm not a fly, he plucks. I'm a male redback spider. Signals that the female feels in her legs.
So we found a way of eavesdropping on the male's signal. What we do is put a small reflective bead on the female's foot, and then we take light from this laser and focus it on the bead.
The male's signals move the silk strands and dislodge the female's foot and the laser light reflecting off it. These tiny light deflections can be recorded and translated into sound.
what you're hearing is the male moving across the web when he first arrives. He sort of meanders around, making a noisy shuffling. Eventually, he'll get down to the courtship signaling, which is more of a rhythmic bouncing. There's some of it there. So it's sort of interspersed with this shuffling behavior. So you get noise and then bouncing, noise and then bouncing. The signaling can go on for a long time, up to 8 hours. We're not quite sure yet what the male is telling the female, but we think it's something about his quality or vigor as a mate. If the male tries to copulate with the female too soon, she'll actually just brush him right off the web. Clearly, this long signaling is essential for successful mating.
When the female decides he's been signaling for long enough, he's invited to climb onto her abdomen, where he drums on her with his palps. Mating follows. And then the male does something crazy. He somersaults, flipping his abdomen right into the female's jaws. In the middle of sex, he commits suicide.
There's 2 reasons for this extreme behavior. First, the female actually allows the male to mate for longer while she's busy eating him. So he transfers more sperm and fertilizes more eggs. Second, females are much less likely to mate again if they've cannibalized their first mate. So this is really a good way for the male to get his genes into the next generation. Even though the behavior seems bizarre, it's definitely a case of reproduction being more important than survival.
All male spiders lead short but focused lives, constantly searching for females to impress. And in the case of the sharp-sighted jumping spiders, they try to impress with their looks. This male jumping spider shows off his fine colors, waves his elegant legs, generally postures, and succeeds in catching a female's eye. But only for a moment. He obviously needs to work on his act. Male jumping spiders have another kind of display that they reserve for other males, an aggressive one. They pose like sumo wrestlers, sizing each other up. And if one isn't plainly bigger or better than the other, the only way to settle it is with a fight. The weaker male usually backs off before getting himself killed. Another spider watches as the winner cleans up. Is he going to have to go through all that again? Now? With legs raised, he's ready. But the signal he gets is not a challenge. At least, not a challenge to fight. This is a female, and she's showing him that she likes what she sees. The courtship is brief, and they quickly get into position to mate. It's over in a matter of minutes. The male leaves to have some other fights and find some other partners. And the female stays behind with the eggs. But for most mother spiders, that's no great responsibility. Most just deposit the eggs and forget about them. Not all, though. A Theridian spider keeps her brood with her and looks after them. At first, the spiderlings lived off the yolk from their eggs, but now that's been used up, and they still aren't big enough to build webs and catch prey. So their mother feeds them. She regurgitates food, and they drink from her jaws. By late summer, though, they're getting too big to be crowded together on the web. It's time to go off and start building webs of their own. This is the time of year when many spiders disperse. They wait for the perfect time to do it. What they want is warmth, sunshine, and a gentle wind. Down in the long grass, money spiders are waiting for that perfect day. This is it. By late morning, the sun is strong and the wind is picking up. The spiders feel the warm air blowing through the grass, and this encourages them to climb to the highest places they can find. Any place where there's a good wind. Any place. When they reach that place, they point their abdomens skyward and release silk. The wind catches the silk and lifts the spiders with it. Like tiny paragliders, they're carried high on the air currents, sometimes thousands of feet. How long they drift and where they come down depends entirely on where the wind blows. That's why there's no escaping them. Wherever you go in the world, a spider will probably have gotten there first.